So, are you guys ready for our finale? Oh, are you ready for the finale? We're going to go from talking about responsibility to talking about Egg McMuffins. And in the spirit of a TEDx event, that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Crazy ideas we're sharing. So a few years ago, I went to another event like this, Ignite, and I was in the audience. And there was this really energetic guy with dreadlocks, and his wife was there. And we met. I was speaking at the event, and I came off stage, and the guy said, "How you doing? My name's Early Jackson." I said, "Your name's what?" He said, "My name's Early Jackson." I said, "Your name's Early?" And in my head, I'm going, did somebody really name him Early so that he would never be late for anything in his life? And so Early's been here. He was the first one here this morning. Of course, he was early, and he was our chess pawn earlier today. And now we get to hear from Early to talk about what he eats early in the morning when he can get away with it. But it's deeper than that. Early's going to share with us some simple lessons that we can learn from a sandwich that we're all familiar with. We've seen advertisements for it, I'm sure, our whole life, the Egg McMuffin. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Early Jackson.
So I have a confession to make. While 17% of Americans claim to be vegan, and another 3% say that they're full-time vegetarians, I have a deep, dark secret that took me weeks to share with my wife when we met and before we got married, and I'm going to confess it to you today. I love Egg McMuffins. There's something about that ooey gooey, cheesy heavenliness that drives me insane. The way the egg and the Canadian bacon nestles ever so slightly in the nooks and crannies of the McMuffin send me into a frenzy. It gets worse. This isn't a new addiction for me. I can remember being 8 years old. Yeah, that good-looking guy is me. I can remember being 8 years old, and it was at a time of transition for my family and for me and my mom. My mom and dad had just split, and there was this thing my mom would do when she took me to school. At least once a week, we'd stop. She'd get me an Egg McMuffin. She'd have a coffee. We'd sit in the parking lot of the McDonald's and chat a little bit before school. I was having some challenges in school. I was not adjusting well to the changes in my family. And it was that secure time for me. And it meant a lot to me. So I'm not alone. I found out that nearly 27 million people eat breakfast at McDonald's every single day around the world. 27 million people. Now, those are some awesome sandwiches. So a few weeks ago, as I was slipping out of the house, and my wife asked me, did I want breakfast? And I said, no, I'm fine. I'm all right. Heading straight to my McDonald's and getting my sandwich, I started thinking about where in the world did these sandwiches come from? Who made this? They should go to heaven. The person that made this should be a saint. We should be bowing down to this person. And after a little bit of research, I found out some information about it. So I want to take you on a journey. I want to take you back to 1971. It's a simpler time. Gas was only 40 cents a gallon. How many would love that to come back, right? 40 cents a gallon. The NASDAQ was created and born. And on September the 19th, 1971, at about 6:04 in the morning, so was I. This was also the year that a guy by the name of Herb Peterson had a chance meeting with his CEO, Ray Kroc of McDonald's. See, Mr. Peterson worked on the financial side of McDonald's, and he wanted to get into the franchising side. So he had taken over a store and invited Kroc to come down and have lunch with him to discuss this innovative idea he had. Now, this was a really cool time for McDonald's because at this point, the only sandwich that was ruling the fast food world was the Big Mac. It was the head honcho. It was the big cheese, if you will. But Peterson had an idea. He had the foresight to believe that they could create a sandwich that people would leave their kitchen tables, that people would leave their homes and come and eat at McDonald's. Now, of course, this took some convincing because they're riding high on the excitement of the Big Mac being such a big deal. And Kroc was sitting there and he refused it at first. He said, there's no way, this is not going to happen. Nobody's going to drive to leave their home to come and have a sandwich at McDonald's. And besides, we're a burger joint. But that's where innovation and persistence comes in. Herb Peterson was so convinced that this idea could take off and could catch on, he pushed and pushed and pushed and made a sandwich for Kroc. After 2 sandwiches, Kroc was convinced. There was something going on in America during this time. In the early 1971, going into 1972, there was a huge boom. There was this explosion of commuterism. People were driving further to go to work. People were moving out of dense urban areas and going into the suburbs deeper and deeper. And it took the foresight of a sandwich to realize that we can capitalize on it. And so much so that in spring of 1971, Amtrak came on the scene. So guess what's happening now? People are leaving their homes, they're parking, they're getting on a train, and they're going to work. But guess what Herb Peterson had a vision for them to take with them? That ooey gooey slice of cheesy heaven. So much so that by 1978, the only sandwich to rival the head honcho, the Big Cheese, the Big Mac, on McDonald's menu was the Egg McMuffin. So as I sat in the parking lot and was eating my sandwich and, thinking about life and pondering greatness and entrepreneurialism and innovation, I really began to look at what it takes to make a move, to change, to shift gears, to latch on to a new paradigm and actually profit from it. And I found that there were a few things that Herb Peterson and Ray Kroc caught on to that we can learn today, not just for our families, but for us as individuals, for our businesses, and most of all for this awesome region called HRVA. Number one, we've got to dictate, not predict, coming trends. See, we live in an area where we have depended heavily on military and government resources and tourism to come in and bail us out when things are tough. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but what I am saying is that change is coming. And the people, the businesses, the families that are successful are the ones that don't sit around and wait to try to guess at what's going to happen. But they take raw data and take coming trends and move into an area and move into a mindset where they can not only predict, but they actually move forward and dictate what's going to happen. See, something awesome happened when people started picking these sandwiches up and driving to work with them. Their coworker in the cubicle next to him is saying, hey, what are you eating? Hey, that smells good. I want one. Now you've got guys that would normally take 15 minutes to go to work. Now they're leaving 30 minutes earlier because they've got to swing past their local McDonald's. Next thing, our community brand is what's going to build sustainability. See, as they're eating, a lot of things happen around the brand of food. There's a lot, if you think about some of your best times in your family, I guarantee you there's a pot roast, there's a turkey, there's a ham. There's something in that picture that reminds you of those good times. And as people were bringing these sandwiches to work, it brought people together. And what's awesome about that, particularly for the region that we live in, is that 3 years ago, my wife and I packed up our house in Philadelphia and moved to this area because of the brand. We came down here for a visit. We hung out in Ghent. We hung out on Granby Street. We went down to the ocean front. We went to Williamsburg. And at this time, we had a toss-up between here, Cleveland, where my wife was born, and Charlotte. And she said, Cleveland is absolutely off the table. You mean I can live somewhere where people speak to you? Where people shake your hand? We would go in restaurants, and I'd go to the bathroom and come back. She'd have 4 new friends. And I said, this community is speaking to me. This community is doing something. It wasn't just that it was an awesome place to go and dip your toe in the sand. It was a place where people cared, where people in Ghent were cool, where people on Granby Street were artistic. And it was something that drew us. We left an urban area of Philadelphia to come here because we saw something that spoke to us. That's what Mr. Peterson saw with the Egg McMuffin. He realized that this can be a rally cry. This can be an opportunity to pull people together, because up until this point, there weren't breakfast joints. There were only burger joints. Third thing, timing is everything, and our time is now. See, you can either deal with what happens, or you can put yourself in a position to be ahead of the curve. And Herb Peterson saw a cultural shift. Now, culture is an interesting thing, because you're born into this dysfunctional thing called a family, and they give you your BS. Come on, I'm talking belief systems here. You grow up with these belief systems, and when the cement settles, it forms a culture. Out of that culture comes your behavior. So if you're ever going to affect behavior, you have to first affect the belief system before the cement actually settles. So when Herb Peterson saw that this shift was happening, that Amtrak was coming on the scene, that people were going to have to travel further, that means they're going to put their kids on the bus earlier. That means that moms are going to be home by themselves. Or at this time, families were having to send both parents out to work. He saw that our time to strike is now. How many things have you missed in your life? How many things have you missed in your family? How many things have you missed in your business because you kept saying, tomorrow's a better day? Nobody's going to catch on to this. Well, maybe if someone else does it, then I'll join them. Peterson understood, if I'm going to do this, I have a vision that America is going to eat these sandwiches. So much so that by 1984, it was an $8 billion cornerstone of McDonald's market. billion dollar cornerstone. Why? Because one man had a vision, because one man saw the opportunity, and he pushed the envelope. Now, like I said, Kroc wasn't convinced on it. It took him some time. He kept saying, nobody's going to do this. And I ask you today, as we prepare to leave, how many times have you heard someone say, when you shared your great idea, nobody's going to do that? It's never been done. They don't do that in Hampton Roads. They don't do that in our family. We're poor. We're from this area. We don't do that. If you push the envelope hard enough and believe in it, you can have whatever you want. Now, I don't know what your dietary judgments of me are. I'm sure some of you, I can sense the judgment in the room. Does he know that it's 12 grams of fat? Absolutely. So I limit them to 1, 2 a month, tops. And whether you like it or not, whether you'll leave here and go out and get a McDonald's McMuffin in the morning or not, one thing you will never be able to deny is that one small little, seemingly insignificant sandwich can teach us a hell of a lot about sustainability and sticking around. Thank you so much.